What is up guys, Wraec is here with a new video, and today I want to talk about a problem that many heroes have, and you probably already have seen it, but may not have thought about it a lot. So, the thing about it is that I was testing Natsu today. Natsu is a very cool hero. I have him at Crown, very strong hero, despite not really making a huge impact in the meta. I remember the times vividly when he was released, people were hyped about the collab, expecting much from the heroes and being a little bit disappointed in the end when Natsu didn't really make it into the meta. Lucy, surprisingly, I would say, strong choice for AFK stages now. I didn't expect that. But Natsu, I wanted to test him a little bit because now we have Theodore, we have Leica, and I wanted to try and just give him a ton of energy and just make him really burst, because he has this 500 initial energy, so basically already halfway to an ult, and then we can go in there and use Theodore, and for Theodore we get another 350 energy, and then on top of that we have Leica, and Leica gives all the allies another 120 energy. So we have a ton of energy feed, bringing us basically immediately to an ult. And I wanted to try this a little bit, and there was something interesting that I noticed. I was fighting Andre, and Andre had a team set up on a map in Arena. So we are looking at Arena right now. No stuff from the season, so no faction skills, no nothing. And I want to show you two fights where we can see this a little bit. The first fight, as you can see, is a victory. He's running a little bit of a Tazi team with Bonnie, so delaying the enemy a fair bit, and then mostly dealing the damage with Bonnie and Tazi in the end. That is the idea of this team. We were going in with Natsu, as I said, Leica and Theodore on top of that, and then I just thought, okay, let's put Velara into the team and Bonnie, because we had this enemy Tazi there, and I was hoping that the Bonnie would get countered by her a little bit. So let's watch this fight. On this map we are able to position enemies, heroes very close to the enemy, and now we will see within 4 seconds we get to the Natsu ult. We are able to hit the enemy there. And then I did an experiment, because one thing that is a problem for those melee heroes is really the movement. They have to move to the enemy before they are able to attack. Natsu, in fact, as with a range of 1, has to move directly to the tile next to the enemy to be able to attack. So now he's able to attack the Tazi because she moved right next to him. And even though, and that is an interesting part, his ult covers more than one tile. So it covers the tiles behind the enemy as well, but it can only be cast when the enemy is right next to you, which is kind of interesting. So you're not able to say, okay, I can hit enemies 3 tiles away with this anyway, so let's cast it where we are still basically at the maximum distance. No, you have to move right next to the enemy and cast it then. And this results in a little bit of a problem when we move our heroes a little bit further away. Let's watch that. So here we positioned our Natsu way over there, and he now has to move to the enemy side. He now has to start attacking, and we see it took us 7 seconds now to attack. So it's a whole lot longer. It doesn't seem like much in the grand space, but remember, it was 4 seconds before, now it's 7 seconds. And the switch resulted in Tazi not getting hit by the ult, Tazi moving over here, killing Velara and Leica, and us losing the fight. So what we just lost the fight to was the time that we lost moving over to the enemy in this scenario, because we used the same heroes, we used the same abilities, we used the same artifact, but we lost this fight to the time we needed to move to the enemy. And that let me think about a few things. Well, first of all, we talked a little bit about movement before, mostly in combination with Kulu, which we'll do a little bit later in the video again, in case you haven't seen it, because it is a very good example for movement. But there is also one more thing, and that was like the walking speed of heroes. If we think about it, we now have a very interesting game with AFK Journey. If I compare it to my other game, Idle Heroes, where maybe some of you guys have watched a few videos, there is no such thing as a movable area. Heroes in general don't move. They have a speed stat, and the speed stat determines the order in which they attack. And it doesn't matter whether they are far or close to the enemy. They can be only positioned in the back row or front row. Some attacks target the back row, some attacks target the front row, some enemies target every enemy anyway. So that is mostly the important part. It is not important how far away from the enemy you are. So in this game, This is very different, even for ranged heroes to an extent. Let's say you want to run Chimera. Chimera is a hero that has a relatively low range for a ranged hero with a range of 4. If we go for something like Bonnie, Bonnie will have a range of 7. So you have to traverse a little bit of distance until you can really attack the enemy. Even with Chimera that is a thing, but with ranged heroes it's usually not too bad. Even if you position her here, she just has to move like 2 tiles to get to here and then will be fine attacking the enemy. For a melee hero like Natsu, attacking the enemy, if they are like over here, will mean moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles basically, or let's say 5 tiles because you can attack from here to there. And this entire distance has to be walked. Nonetheless, if we check out the stats right now, I haven't found any stats really associated with moving, and maybe I'm wrong. I tried my very, very best to find information on this topic. It has not been something that was findable. We have 2 stats that are in general speed focused, attack speed, but this says it increased the frequency of the unit's normal attack and the attack animation speed. And then we have haste, which is the normal attacks and the attack animation speed. But if we compare like the heroes in general from the way they move, which I have set up a little bit of a race here, we just have heroes that are in general melee heroes. And some people might say now, Wraec, Corrin has a range of 2. Yes, but his normal attacks seem to have a range of 1. So that can also be a thing. And if we see the movement there, yeah, the enemy distribution will play a role. So some of those heroes here will have to walk a little bit less than the enemies will have. So for example, Natsu will have to walk considerably smaller away. We can see it's roughly the same speed really. There doesn't seem to be too much of a difference there. Despite all those heroes that we saw over here being really majorly different. I mean, they fulfill different purposes. We have a tank here, we have warriors, and with Seth, I already heard, like as a rogue, he's moving very, very fast, but he's cheating a little bit. We'll get to that. He's cheating a little bit in the way this is. The walking animation of those heroes seems to be a little bit different. Some heroes now incorporate some jumps, but overall, really, we don't see too much of a difference in the walking speed, which I thought was very, very interesting, because we now have this game where walking seems to make a difference. We just proved that by going into PvP. Movement in general and walking especially can determine whether or not you win a fight. Despite that, there are very, very little abilities that really interact with it or get into movement itself. The earliest one that I can just think of was actually Rainier, a very, very important hero, and a hero that has fallen out of meta a bit, even though I recently incorporated him into my Balrun team, and I still think he's an absolutely great hero with very strong abilities. It's just a hero, and I think Brownie has said that, like, people in general play around Rainier. Rainier is not seen in the meta because people constantly play around him, and as soon as people would basically stop doing that, Rainier would pop up back. When you set your team, you think, okay, where could the enemy now attack with Rainier, and that makes the team inherently stronger, because as soon as you can teleport over a damage dealer with Rainier, you will have a tough time. It doesn't always mean you necessarily lose immediately, but it's a huge vulnerability that you in general don't want to take. With Rainier, the way this works, it's a teleport. It's not really a movement, but it certainly moves the hero from one place to another. Another example for movement at the start of the battle, or in general, like a way to get closer to the enemy, we should say, is also Gerda. Gerda, very, very recently introduced hero, has an ability right here, where she leaps forward 3 tiles immediately. So we have an immediate jump at the start of the battle. We can incorporate her maybe in our little race here. We will see Gerda will actually win. We will replace Corrin. Let's see. And there we have Gerda, and we can see once the battle starts, she moves over. Still takes a considerable amount of time, actually, if you now see it. In comparison to the other heroes, she almost took the same amount of time there. Which is interesting. I haven't really considered that so far, so that is another very interesting thing. But it is certainly a disadvantage over a ranged hero, because in the same time, when we have a hero with considerable range in our lineup, let's say, for example, let's use a Bonnie. She has a range of 7. we'll see the first action that Bonnie takes is attacking the enemy, or getting stunned and duped by enemy Bonnie in this case, which is a little bit unfortunate. Maybe we retry that. I didn't plan for that one. But the first action that she takes is actually attacking the enemy, so we immediately have attacks going on, we immediately have abilities flying around, and she is trying her best to attack, while our other heroes were still busy moving over to the enemy. So that is an advantage, and especially if you go outside of one of those PvE situations into a PvP situation, which I also had today. I was trying to fight Atraxi a little bit. And this becomes kind of important. Do you have to move to the enemy, or can you just attack from the position where you are? So let's watch an example fight where I fought Atraxi. Atraxi, by the way, same as Brownie, another content creator that I would absolutely encourage you to check out. Atraxi streaming a lot on Twitch recently, I saw. Brownie, of course, very famous for his PvP videos. And I want to start with this fight. It is a fight that I did with the Wilder team. The idea was, okay, we kind of have to counter Atraxi's team, because Atraxi set Thador together with the Cryanaya. Obvious goal here, instantly cast the Cryanaya ult, nuke the enemy, combined with Dunlinger to let only Cryanaya really ult. You can counter with your own Dunlinger in this situation. And I just wanted to see, okay, how does it work out if we go Wilder a little bit, have a few Wilder heroes going on, have maybe Lily May for a chance to stop Cryanaya ult, and then try to get a Belrin going mostly unsupported, which means we have 3 melee heroes on our side. And you can see enemy Kulu here gives us a really tough time, because while we have natural obstacles, which is just like the way or walls that are just on the map, we can also create obstacles for melee heroes just with Cryanaya or Alsa. This is something that we saw as early as Season 1. And in this situation it results in us not even getting close to winning, because we don't even get in the general direction here of the enemies. We just hit this rock, enemy units already hit us, Cryanaya already with the storm there, Kulu of course inflicting massive hits, and the first hero that enters the site is also not safe, and that is something that I want to show you in the next fight, because, well, while we have really good anti-melee hero abilities in this game, surprisingly enough, AFK Journey seems to hate the melee units. I don't know why. So now new team using Rainier to teleport over. We steal the Cryanaya here, are able to hit it, but one thing that you might have missed right now, and maybe we show that again, because it's easy to miss. We teleport Belrin over, you see that? Belrin is here, and he gets thrown back, because Kulu has an ability that is able to throw the enemy unit back over the wall, and this results in us really only hitting Thador for a little bit of damage instead of nuking the entire enemy team with our Belrin. And in the end, succumbing to the absolute monstrous damage that this Kulu is able to do. Look at that. Erected the wall here again. We're trying to get through, and in this time get bombarded by Kulu. Do you see how much damage it is? Crazy. So our Belrin, despite, like, in 1 versus 1, you would expect him to be a little bit stronger probably, and also having a Paragon advantage and a Star advantage here, loses absolutely just to not being able to cover the distance to this enemy Kulu, and not being able to hit her at all, just because he would have to move through the stone and then cover the distance, and Kulu is very good at keeping enemies away from her and pushing them away. So very big disadvantage here again for the melee heroes. And if you are interested in how I eventually got the victory here, I tried a lot of different things, but the easiest strategy is just to steal the Kulu. Because then there is nothing left that really teleports you back, and that then looks like this. So we teleport over, we steal the Kulu, Kulu's on our side, Kulu gets easily defeated by Shark here, because alone she can't do anything, and then we are on the enemy side, and Belrin does Belrin things, so now we have full life. This ends up with a full nuke, and yeah, that is basically it for the enemy team. So Belrin alone on the enemy side, will wreak quite a lot of havoc, and if he isn't removed by the Kulu, will easily solo the entire enemy team. So that was another thing that we had to look into. So one option to move is of course now Rainier. We saw that. Then we saw a different thing that might have been a little bit overlooked. The movement option was the global range that we have on Shark here. Some abilities are just inherently able to move you across the map. Ravaging Claws, for example, has a skill range of global, so you can cast it wherever. It doesn't matter if there's a wall or something in the range. It is not very important. In general, most abilities that have like an inherent long range don't really care about walls. That is something that is in there. So this tile range of global allows us to just jump to the enemy side. Some other heroes do have inherent movement abilities. We talked a little bit about with Seth. With Seth we have this Seth pounces on the weakest enemy in range, which is a weird thing to say when you have when you have a global attack range on the ability, by the way. The range is literally everywhere. So yeah, a bit of a weird way to phrase it. And similar stuff is seen on Wraec. On Wraec we have like the dive, also global range, and on Athalia we have the dash that she has. So she's able to move over, and those abilities are supremely strong and usually found on the better melee units. On the weaker ones you don't have such ways, and then they are often stuck and face all the problems that we just highlighted. All the things being having to move over to the enemy side, being potentially blocked by Alsa, being potentially blocked by Kulu, or just outright CC'd on the way. They're a hero that is very commonly seen harming those melee units would be Siren, for example. But still, we see very little interaction. I would say overall, for the amount of heroes that we have in the game, the interaction with movement is still rather low. We have different approaches that could be taken. We saw the Rainier here with the swap teleport. Of course, one part of this that makes it strong is that we are able to send the unit to the enemy. The other part is that we are able to take an enemy unit. I would argue taking an enemy unit is very, very strong. We saw how easy we were able to defeat Kulu, who was before such a big threat and now was able to be taken out by us with ease. But we could have another hero, let's say a big mauler hero, that just throws us towards the enemy and that just takes the heroes behind him and throws them towards the enemy. Something like this that could be very cool to cover distance very, very fast. That is something that I could see. Or just in general movement-based abilities in both directions, really. Laundromat over on Yapala, for example, suggested a melee unit with some skills that are a little bit movement focused. When you get a crit, for example, that you are able to move a little bit faster, or that you are able to slow down enemies. We have that to an extent with Siren, but if you, for example, had like an ability that just in general slows the enemies down by quite a lot, that could be absolutely enormously strong against certain melee units. We haven't seen too much interaction with that yet. I would kind of hope for a hero that allows us to just immediately move over to the enemy side, to just like have swarm the enemy side, jump over there, get our melee units in place and wreak havoc. I could really see that moving forward. Being an interesting thing. So that is really a question that is there. I'm still immediately surprised by how little interaction there is and how little the stats really care for that. Maybe when there is the next Paragon buff, they could also give Paragon heroes a movement speed modifier. How about that? No, this was just a joke. Don't hate me in the comments, please. I mean, we discussed Paragon buffs, and I also said in the last video that I'm not a big fan, actually. I would really still wish that my heroes were all Supreme Plus. That would make testing a whole lot easier. But yeah, that was just like a take that I had on movement. I thought I would share it a little bit. I thought we'd talk about it a little bit. And I shared it to the Yapala Discord, and some people seemed interested, and we discussed it a little bit, which was fun. So I thought I would make a video about it too, and talk about this now, because it is a topic that I feel like is largely untouched, largely uncovered, and could really need a little bit more of oversight, because, well, the heroes that don't really have a movement ability and are still melee range, they suffer from it. They are inherently a lot weaker. If this guy could cast this ability from all over the map on the enemy, I think you could have seen some play. And also, by the way, Very important if you have stationary effects. Melee heroes are very annoying to play when you have some, for example, a Callan, because Callan will create his area where the heroes are basically immune in, and oh, we need one more copy there. And the melee heroes will just run out of it, while you have ranged heroes that you can just let stay inside there. Let's craft that. Even know what abilities he has. Fires missiles. Okay, cool. So this is something that is also very, very important, and something you should keep in mind. Yeah, lastly, we of course have our sponsor. As you already know by now, that is Loot Bar for the cheapest dragon crystals in AFK Journey. If you want to get some stellar crystal packs or some wonderful raid up tickets to get Thador, which is a very cool hero for PvP, seems to be moving towards PvP meta a little bit. He has surprised me. We'll make another video. And you can get them right there, and if you go through the link down in the description, you get some discount coupons that will make your next purchase even cheaper. So don't miss out on that. Definitely recommend Loot Bar. And with that, I wish you a great day. Tell me down in the comments what you think about melee heroes and all of the movement stuff, and we'll see us in the next one.